Gender, yeah. Gender, Social Inclusion, and Interim Union Budget, 2024 to 2025. Namaste and greetings. I, Samriddhi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Talk. We are gathered here today for a panel discussion on gender, social inclusion, and interim union budget 2024-2025 as a part of IMPRI fourth annual series of thematic deliberations and analysis of the interim union budget 2024-25. This discussion is organized by the Gender Impact Study Center, GISC, IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi, as a part of IMPRI #Web Policy Talk series. I welcome all of you to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for tuning in to this discussion. Now, let me introduce you to the esteemed gathering here. Our chair for the session is Professor VIBHUTI Patel, visiting distinguished professor IMPRI. We welcome you, ma'am. The distinguished panelists for the session are Dr.Sanghamitra Dhar, Coordinator, Program Lead, Gender Responsive Budgeting, UN Women India, Professor N. Manimekalai, Founder Director, Department of Women's Studies, Dr. Paramita Mukherjee, Independent Consultant, Shri Sailesh Mishra, Founder President, Silver Linings Group, Maya Awasthy, Trans Activist, Ms. Deepa Pawarji, Managing Trustee and Founder Director, Anubhuti, Dr. Neha Shahji, Associate Professor, LJ University. We welcome everyone. We look forward to learning from our esteemed guests, esteemed gathering today. Now, without any further ado, let me start the program. It's my honor and privilege to invite Professor VIBHUTI Patel to start the program with the chair's opening remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Samriddhi, for this nice introduction. Welcome, friends, for this first panel discussion of the IMPRI fourth annual series of thematic deliberations and analysis of interim budget 2024-25. And the first, I congratulate IMPRI team for starting the whole series with the gender, social inclusion and interim union budget 2024-25. In the mainstream economics, always gender and social inclusion, they are the last to be included in the discourse, but here we have a very, very proactive gender responsive team. And esteemed panelists, Dr. Sanghamitra Dhar, Professor N. Manimekalai, Dr. Paramita Majumdar, Shri Sailesh Mishra, Ma'am Maya Awasthy, Ms. Deepa Pawar, and Dr. Neha Shah. And the respected participants, I know that you all are there, not only on Zoom, but also on YouTube and also Facebook Live, Spotify, and several other portals of IMPRI. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Ms. Samriddhi, and Ms. Yashika, and the whole IMPRI team for the series of panel discussions on interim budget 24-25, and the first and foremost organizing this discussion on gender and social sector. As we all know, that interim budget serves as a framework for managing provisional expenditures over a short duration till the new government is formed after the general election, which are going to be held soon. And it will take the new government will take the office at the central level, and they will come up with the new budget. But interim budget presented yesterday by Honorable Finance Minister is meant to meet the financial requirements and tackle revenue considerations of the current government during this interim period. Now, following the inauguration of the new government, the comprehensive budget for the remaining portion of the financial year will be typically presented. Post-independence period, historically, if you have seen, India has implemented a range of major social sector initiatives to address various challenges and improve the well-being of its citizens. That covers areas such as education, public health, women's development and empowerment, rural development, skill development, employment generation, special needs of socioeconomic caste, scheduled tribe, persons with disability, lonely elderly from the poverty groups. Now, major challenges faced for gender and social sector concern in current times are youth unemployment. You must have read all the newspapers and economics journals are talking about 40 to 45% youth unemployment in the urban, rural, and tribal areas. Low work participation rate of women, which was abysmally low of 27%. The current periodic labor force participation rates of the government show them as a 34%, but that is also very, very low as compared to our neighboring countries. And most of the advanced countries, they have even doubled the participation rate. Food inflation, which is a mind-boggling issue, and also the agrarian distress. Now, these four are the key concerns in social sector. And from RBI Governor, Dr. Duri Subbarao, in his edit page article in Times of India just 2 days back, he alerted the government, and I quote, consequences of jobless growth is inequality, quote completed. Dr. Subbarao also avers that using instruments of policies and financial allocation of interim budget 24-25 and the fiscal measures that for enhancing purchasing power of the bottom 50% of population can be enhanced. This will result in a huge consumption that will result in more production, more employment, resulting in a higher quality of economic growth and reduce inequality. So for the upward spiral of the economy, also it is very important. It's a win-win formula. It is not just the way people say that it is not a revdi or it is not a sponge, the bottom population, but they are the highest taxpayers because we have the indirect taxes are the 85% of the tax collection that our country gets. Now, last year's budget too ignored social spending in favor of capital expenditure. Everywhere the mantra was capex, 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 and the same thing continues now also. Over last 1 decade, there has been continuous trend of declining expenditure of the union budget for schemes for protective and welfare schemes such as shelter homes, short stay homes, rehabilitation schemes for women survivor of violence, pensions for the widows and destitute women, direct benefit to women, or the crisis management situations arising out of economic and socio-cultural subordination and dehumanization of women, social service spending on education, public health, childcare facilities. You must have read in last 1 week, so many articles have appeared about how hardly 10% of the state-supported crashes have remained. There are the crashes have been continuously closing down, and currently there are hardly 400 government-supported crashes all over the country, which is abysmally low number. Working women's hostels, housing, nutrition, water supply, sanitation, toilet, drainage, fuel, fodder, regulatory services for combating gender-based violence such as state commissions for women or women's cell within the police stations or awareness generation programs also have experienced either stagnant or reduction in the budgetary allocation. So gender commitments don't get translated into financial commitments in this neoliberal economy, and that is really devastating. Social sectors that ensures basic rights to have declined as a proportion of GDP. For example, Saksham Anganwadi or a portion to that aims to child nutrition, to address child malnutrition and hunger, there has not been a major increase. Or whether it's an ICDS program or the Poshan Abhiyan or nutrition scheme for adolescent girls, all of them are really completely marginalized in this whole discourse on the budget. According to NFHS 5 data also, we see that the anemia is a major challenge for the children. 67% of the children were proved to be malnourished as per the NFHS. The latest metadata, the data sets that we have. Midday meal program, that also was abandoned, and now also you can see only 50% of them are now functioning, and the budgetary allocation has also gone down. Prime Minister Matru Vandana Yojana or the National Food Security Act as per the ration to the poverty groups, or MG Narega, very important scheme for employment generation in the rural areas. In fact, we need similar schemes in the urban areas also. National Social Assistance Program, NSAP, or the school education, primary education, food subsidy, all of them have really faced a major resource crunch in the budget, and the allocations have secularly continuously gone down. According to World Social Protection Report by International Labour Organization, only 25% of Indians are covered by at least one social security scheme against the Asia Pacific average. Even the countries poorer, 42 countries are there in Asia Pacific region. Countries which are poorer than India, they also have nearly 44% of the population is covered by the social security schemes. So it is as a result, what you can see is that India's stagnant human development index, India ranked 132nd among the nearly 42 countries. Now, it is in this context, today's panel discussions becomes extremely important. My first question is to Dr. Paramita Majumdar, who is a gender expert and gender budget expert. And I would like to ask you, Dr. Majumdar, can you provide an overview of a gender responsive budgeting from the time first GR was sent by the Finance Ministry in 2005? And what is the contribution of state governments and the union territories also? So the national and subnational level, what has been the profile of gender responsive budgeting? What is your response to the interim and the current budget so far as the gender and social sector allocations are concerned? Oh, she's not there. Paramita is not there. So, Dr. Sanghamitra Dhar, would you like to take over?
No, she's actually in the participant
So can you bring her
portion.
in the panel? Can you?
I see
unmute
her
her?
in the. I see her there. I don't see her here.
Oh, so Samriddhi, can you unmute her?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
We are. You can hear us, Paramita ji?
Can hear all of you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, we can't see you only. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bindi, for your, question. The thing is,
Hello, can you switch on your video?
I'm trying to do something. This antivirus thing has come up. Just give me a second, please.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Meanwhile, you can speak. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll just trying to. Yeah. So, so you said, in terms of the government order which was, issued and how it functions since 2005, Dr. Vibhuti. The thing is that, what have we learned since 2005, if I can say so? There are two parallel directions, if I can say, because we do understand from our experiences, as far as gender budgeting is concerned, we need to have, three key players in terms of the planning department, whosoever it is, whatever the name is, the planning department, the finance department, and the social welfare, or WCD, should go hand in hand. They should sit together, talk together, plan together. But as far as whether it's the state governments or the government of India is concerned, it has always been, in silos, because the Ministry of Finance issues the budget circular. So one thing has happened is, at least at the government of India level, that we do have a gender inclusive budget call circular, so to say, which asks the ministries and the departments to actually furnish the gender budget statement, the child budget statement, the SCST, subplan, etc., along with the other along with the other demands for grants details that the ministries submit. So, but this is, again, as we all know, it's a statement. So, and over the years, the gender budget statement has evolved at the central level, but it's much better in some of the states, because they have not made the mistakes, or they have learned what government of India has been doing over the years. So the states which have started late, or are a bit more proactive, if I can say, like for example, in terms of at least the budget call circular, we do have government of Karnataka, government of Kerala, of course, Maharashtra government starting for the second time all over again, because it started way back in 2011, and now recently with the government of India and UN Women's support, it has restarted, with the budget call circular, they have, they are trying to move ahead, and trying to plan it better. So but then when finance is doing, they really don't talk to the women, social welfare, or the women's department, to ask, or to include, the requirements that need to be part of the budget call circular. So what has happened at the GOI level, I'm sure all of you must have noticed. I'm sure, Dr. Bhutti, you are definitely aware that there has been a circular which was issued by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, which is an addendum to the budget call circular, and which is added by the Ministry of Finance. They are asked, kind of an advisory, which is asked by the Finance Ministry, that the departments do follow. And gradually over a period of time, there has been a bit of strictness at the central level to actually set up the gender budget cells, the kind of institutional mechanism that the ministry is trying to have. But all said and done, so this is regarding the budget calls. So the importance of the budget call circular has been really well established at the state level, at the central government level. But this more that has to be added, more work needs to be added, more research, more dialogue, more advocacy, just with the single tool has to be done. Sorry, hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and as far as the GBS is concerned, because the understanding of not all the departments, both at the state level as well as at the central level, because of lack of advocacy, lack of training, lack of handholding, continuity with the state departments, there are a host of issues. So the understanding is that GBS is synonymous with gender budgeting, while it is part of the budget cycle, and it's beyond that. It's from policy to audit. So that understanding is definitely lacking, and GBS. The effort is basically to push all the departments towards towards reporting in the gender budget statement. That becomes kind of an entry point. But then, having done that, the departments somehow feel satisfied or contented that they have done gender budgeting, which has been a kind of a roadblock for India as well as for the state departments, state governments. And more I mean, there definitely is an opportunity, and we actually have missed it. The SDG indicators, the monitorable indicators, that so much of work has gone into it, could have been really aligned really well with the gender budget statement, with the schemes, and then allocations really thought through, at least with the GBS, which has really not happened. So kind of an earmarking, 15 ad hoc earmarking, so to say, of the part B, 15 or 30 or 50%, whatever is still happening even till date. Here and there, some improvements one can see, but even till date, one doesn't really know that what is the methodology for reporting in part B of the statement. There's a lot of resistance because, as I said, as I began with, there's a lot more discussion which is required with the three arms of the government, and until and unless this happens, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And thereafter, I mean, apart from the GBS, we know that there are scholars who has been, asking for the popularity of the gender budget statement. Has been quite a lot. Despite that, we all know that the expenditure, sorry, not the expenditure, the reported expenditure, the allocation that is reflected in the gender budget statement has hovered between 3% to 5%, 6%, around that only. And last year and this year, as you have mentioned, Professor, that the last year also, because of the capital expenditure, and even this year with the continuation of the capital
Same, same.
expenditure, what has happened is the gender budget statement is, it looks inflated. The quantum of expenditure. Sorry. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the total grand total of the GBS really looks inflated because if you put like you have the social sector ministries, and you have the defense budget. Similarly, you have the capital expenditure, and you have all those chotu schemes which is reflected, and your total becomes huge. So one is very happy that the GBS is a great one and a good one. So this year also, between the last year and this year also, if you see even if it's interim, you look at the grand total of the gender budget statement, which is there in the indiabudget.nic.in site. It's pretty high, between the two period. If you see, the growth has been 38.74%, like roughly 38% of growth this year, and last year and this year is pretty high of the gender budget statement. But actually, that's really not the case. Another thing that has happened, it's not all negative, but an environment has definitely been created. Something like the outcomes, whether it's for the SDGs or whether it's in terms of Niti, actually assessing the outcome at the output indicators recently, currently, this has begun with gender budgeting. A lot of advocacy around this really has pushed this happening. But yeah, sex disaggregated data, there is still a concern. So that is something at the state level. This is at a really, this is not even taken off at the state level. As far as the understanding, there is like really, not even at the nascent stage, if I can say. The GBS is taken very seriously at the state level, but in terms of output and outcome indicators, the outcome budget or the performance budget, if you can say so, very few states, like one is Orissa government, which they do some amount of work. It's done in a good way, but other than that, outcome budget, if you can say, there are very few states to say they do it in a manner which is really not it's basically looks like child's play. It's really not up to the mark at all. Tracking of funds by the CSOs and researchers really has helped GB to, at least for the central government, with the parliament questions, even if it's in the simplest form, to keep it alive at the central level. So that has really happened. And since 2008, 2005, the GBS
Yeah.
5/6, the GBS was out by published for the first time, and 2008 onwards, there has been a scheme that is implemented by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, under which money is given, financial grant in aid is given to the government departments throughout the country, and so that has really help the state governments and the ministries at the central level to learn or maybe to institutionalize the processes of gender budgeting. That has really happened. The other understanding that I see is sex disaggregate data is really crucial. Time and again, in number of workshops, in every meeting, this has been emphasized, that until and unless for everything sex disaggregate data is collected, is analyzed and put to planning and the budgetary impacts, there has to be use of the sex disaggregated data and not only collection. The way researchers do, some kind of orientation, some kind of training of the officers is really critical. So that is one part. And the other thing is, which is very important, is gender audit, which began at the central ministry level but really has not taken off. But at the panchayat level, this has started working with Ministry of Panchayati Raj actually taking the lead. But that's not for gender. This is generally the budget of the panchayat, and government of Kerala has really gone a step ahead to think about both panchayat funds as well as gender audit to some extent. So that is basically the last, since 2005 to 2023-24, if we say so, that has been the overall whatever we have done for gender budgeting. Is on pen and paper, it looks that okay, there are some institutional processes that has done, but in terms of allocation, in terms of implementation, you have already spelled out in your introduction that whatever you have said, everything has to tick mark that there's a long way to go. And as far as interim budget, again, you have already outlined that in terms of addressing the lack of employment, the wage growth deficiencies, these are all there. Of course, in terms of the focus areas of the prime ministers and the finance ministers, we see this for castes as mentioned. So even if it is was there, like Garib, Mahila, Yuva, and Annadata, but if you look at these were the highest priorities of the government as mentioned. But if you look at those sectors, even, we do have experts to speak about those sectors specifically. But I would say, it's a long way to go. Infrastructure, again, we all know that even this year it increased by 11.1% for this year, and it would be 3.4% of the GDP. So this is also quite high. Now the thing is that I had flagged this last year, and the same thing I need to repeat this year as well. In terms of infrastructure, the tourist centers also has been outlined by the finance minister, saying that comprehensive development of tourist centers will be done, and including Lakshadweep, of course. There will be, they will launch a scheme to help deserving sections of the middle class living in rented houses or slums or chawls and unauthorized colonies to buy or build their own houses. So this is in terms of putting the money, whether it's the power sector or roads and highways, etc. Now very recently means it is 30th of January, it was just last Tuesday only, that we see that this should have been done long back. It was just an advisory, and that too, it has taken so long. Lot needs to be done, but the first step has been taken by few ministries like the Ministry of Labor and Employment, and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, issuing advisories to include women in their workforce and not to discriminate, to promote gender equality basically, and to include women to ensure their safety in building, in construction, in highways sector. So this has been issued 30th.
I think that has happened even at the subnational level, because wherever, whether it is the Public Works Department or any government project, that the advisory is there. So Paramita, you have given a very important overview, and I think I would just like to explain to the participants that when we talk about the part A and part B of gender budgeting, part A is 100% allocation for women and children. For example, budget of Ministry of Women and Child Development at union government, and the Department of Women and Child Development at a subnational level. And when we talk about part B, that means 30% of all development-oriented anti-poverty programs or development-oriented you have to have minimum 30% beneficiary is not the word, it is abhorred by gender economists, but stakeholders have to be women. So that these are the two, part A and part B. So now my second question is to Dr. Manimekalai. Are you there?
Yes, yes.
Are you there?
Yeah, I am there.
Okay, we can't see you. So you are an economist who have worked on gender budgeting right from day one, and you have been also founder of the Women's Studies Department, which were given entrusted the responsibility of doing gender responsive budgeting way back in 1991, when the India adopted new economic policy. So my question to you is that as an economist with specialization in women's studies, can you reflect on macroeconomic framework that has influenced interim budget 2024-25? And how can we achieve gender commitments of the state to be translated into financial commitments based on your example of Tamil Nadu? And which states have adopted gender responsive budgeting with a greater commitment? And can you tell us about their best practices with regards to gender responsive budgeting?
Yes. Thank you, Professor VIBHUTI, for inviting me. So quickly about the macroeconomic.
Can you switch on your video?
You are able to hear me?
We are able to hear you clearly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think we also listened to Paramita, and I need not repeat what is happening. Of course, this is an interim budget, but taking into account the earlier announcements and the current scenario, particularly 2-3 important areas I wish to highlight. The actual interim budget shows that there is decline in the allocation for the Saksham, Anganwadi and Poshan scheme, where we are already suffering with the lowest hunger index. I mean, we are performing poor in terms of the hunger index, and of course, gender parity index also. We are a long way to go. So, in that context, even in the interim budget, it has come down in terms of the budget revised estimates decreased from 23-24 to currently it is 2%. And to the Ministry of Women and Child Development, where some fund will be coming for the development programs also, there is not much change during 23-24, but now there has been a slight increase, but it is a kind of very minimum. And the only area where you could see more is in the Mission Shakti, which last year it was a decline of 26% in the budget estimates, but now it is increased to 35%. So that is one area. So how the hunger and malnutrition and associated, and whenever it is malnutrition or hunger or poverty, it have impact more or disproportionate impact on women and girl children, and poverty always has the women's face. So given that, we only expect that more focus should be on that, but in fact, the existing schemes also, there has been a cut is a sorry state of affair. And in case of some schemes, there is an overall increase in the general budget to total expenditure to 6.5%. Compared to the overall 2 decades, it is now a slight increase, and that way. But Ministry of Education, there has been a almost 50% decline from 15% last year in the budget estimate, revised budget estimate. Now it is only 7%. So it is there is a decline of 7%. So education is also one area where we are talking about reducing the gender gap and setting the goal to achieve a certain percentage there by 2030, etc. But there is a cut. It is I don't know why it is not actually. The third important component is about rural development. empowerment because it is talking about the MNRG, which is one of the important schemes, really capturing the very rural poverty-ridden households, particularly where more than 50% of the women are being catered for these 100 days of employment. And there is no change as far as the budget allocation is concerned. That is also one of the major concerns of this interim budget, which has to be dwelt upon. And another important thing, of course, we were discussing about Part A and Part B. This Awas Yojana, of course, it is claiming that it will be coming under the 70%, but there has been a cut to a certain extent, and the revised budget is showing a slight increase. And so taking malnutrition and the major macroeconomic impact would be also, the variables should be taken is also about the economic participation of the women and recognition of the farmers, so women farmers particularly. So as far as the economic participation of women, we have been experiencing for the past 2.5 decades or so a decline, and recently only in 2022 onwards we realized an increase in the economic participation, and that too mostly reflected on the rural women. And the same way that the unemployment also is disproportionately affected to the women's employment. So there are, on the one hand, there is a but the unemployment rate has been very sharp, and that too disproportionate, and it implies that whenever there is any unemployment putting up system, it is the woman who will be, that's what they say, the last to be hired and first to be fired. So that we experienced that in the pandemic also. And the worst is that the allocation to UGC, the on hand education also, we have been asking, even the National Education Policy 2020 also underlines for 6% GDP to be spent on education, but it is not moving beyond 3%, and it is almost stagnant at 2.9%. So this will also have an implication on the skill development and educational and higher education, all these areas. And the worst is the allocation of UGC cut by 61%, and it is largest for the past 5 years. And we are in the, we claim, and we always be happy say that we are demographic dividend is really the best, and we need to kind of skills, harness their skills, etc. And accordingly, you have to allocate more and capture their to education, but it is not already. It's not happening as expected. It is not now. It has been happening for the past or since independence, you have to say. So on the one hand, the interim budget, the finance minister claimed that it is going to be, the wording is also followed, the social justice. It is for the first time they are saying social justice is an effective governance model, but and also saying or claiming that they are going to concentrate on poor, youth, women, and also farmers. But what has actually happened in the allocation of the, even in this 3 months interim budget, is not reflected in the budget allocation. And this will have, and as far as the major important aspect I would like to, in the macroeconomic impact on the influence of this interim budget allocation on economic participation of women, that is a very perennial issue, and there are major concerns as far as the economic empowerment or economic participation of women is concerned. The one, of course, for the periodic labor force survey, there has been a slight increase, and that too, I said, women, rural women, but the increase in work participation rate is also resulted in, studies have shown that the more women join to the lowly paid jobs, and the skills are not there, technologically not imparting required skills, and therefore they are putting into. And I can quote from my own research also several examples, and the CWDS has also conducted a study wherein the migrant women from across the country, and to surprise, it is almost 50% there in Tamil Nadu textile and garment industries from other states. They are all migrant women. I'm talking about women alone. After 100%, only 50% are from the drawn from the state, and other 50% from northeast, including Jharkhand, Orissa, Assam, Nepal, and also to some extent UP and Bihar. So these women are all coming there, and the worst part is that the wage fixed is very, very minimum. And moreover, you all know that the Din Dayal scheme, in which the government is claiming that they are training and placing, this is what they offer: training and coming and placing there in the textile sector. And you know, the working conditions, the payment, and social security and safety net at all are in question, and they are sometimes not on par with the minimum wage at all. And similarly, there are also even I can say this is now taking, because of the poverty, people who are young, who are supposed to be in the school or college, are brought to the labor market. And also the elderly, that is the one of another study there in Kerala on coir industry. I observed that one of my PhD scholars is working, that the elderly women who got retired, are again continuing there in the coir cooperatives, because the youngsters are not interested, young women, just because it is a traditional industry and it is a huge industry. You know, Kerala coir industry is a major, and it is dying almost because of the youngsters are not interested in joining. That is one aspect. The other one is that in the name of the young, it is registered on the names of young, and the elderly women again coming back, and they are rendering their service even after 70. That is the reality. So on the one hand, the very kind of vulnerability of the young girls who are drawn to the export processing zones where there is no regulation, and the kind of scheme based employment, some lump sum is being given, and they are taken as apprentices, not even as laborers, and therefore devoid of everything. Then there is no safety net, and there is no policy, there is no provision to bring them into any folder of union and fight for the right, etc. Nothing. So another important feature of this is that these girls, young girls who are coming here, they will stay only for 3-4 years and get married off and go. So the capitalist system is also very much enjoying this pool of young girls coming and taking it. So these are all the flaws that is existing in the labor market. And only thing in Tamil Nadu I can quote, and it is happening elsewhere also, it's very high there in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, where the women participation in higher education is also equally almost close to men. So gender gap in higher education is almost 1% or 2% totally. So given that, my worry is, where are these girls after this education? They are joining higher education, and there are a number of best practices also in both the states. I can quote here itself that Kerala and Tamil Nadu, there are a number of states, but in terms of inbuilt, even before coming, they're talking about the gender budgeting, this states were kind of mainstreaming gender needs, and therefore they were part of the policy, at least in terms of welfare and treating women's as a beneficial, though not as agents of women. Now only slowly the government is also moving to recognize the agency of women. So in that perspective, I feel that whatever in the central government and through certain out and other states also, whatever is committed there in the policies and programs and also in the budget are not reflected there in the financial commitments. I can quote some here itself. I told that you have been telling that it is for poor youth, women and farmers, but there has been decline in education, and there has been decline in malnutrition, abortion program. All these are all very much required to alleviate poverty on the other hand, one hand, and also the improve the malnutrition status to a better status and also skill. And this government is necessarily to focus. I talked about the economic participation, where the skill development and training is given, but the major chunk of the skilled with respect of gender, they are not placed. That is the issue. The marginal percentage of them are placed, and every now and then, being in the academic system, that they will ask for statistics. So they will fill, then they will show that so many has been placed, but next month they would not be there in the market, labor market. And therefore, how to take this situation as people skill trained and so much is being allocated, but there is no monitoring system to kind of continuing and making them to continue the labor market. So that is a major issue, and therefore unemployment or underemployment will be the kind of thing. And the safety net, there is one important aspect is informalization on the one hand, and informalization in the formal sector itself, including education or any other sector, and the emergence of the contract system since the new liberal policies have been introduced. And so these women, whether you are teaching in the university as teachers, assistant professor, or I am also right now conducting as women sanitation workers, study on women sanitation workers. They are also, so everything in the contract system. And if you go to the office, you will get, you go to the work, you go to work, you will get money. Otherwise, nothing. And there is no other organization or any, there are some kind of a board, sanitation workers, women's board, etc. Sorry, sanitation workers board, etc. But hardly the women are taken there to enroll. And there are some TATCO, that is the Adi Dravida Welfare Organization, is supporting with the production of some cards or so. But these women contract workers, no, they are always asked to come at any time, throughout sometime minister visit or any other visit, ceremonial festivals, they are called, but no additional wages being paid. And so contractualization of the work there in the labor market is completely evaded the benefits available. And the women are also, as just now we also listened to the other one, they are forced to take up the work, because otherwise they don't go. I am currently going, even tomorrow I am going to the field where we observe the sanitation women workers. They are going to this work, and now it is being drawn from other than Dalit communities also, or the communities meant for earlier doing this work, and that is a positive development. And at the same time, they are being pushed to the market because nobody else there to support, and at least this work will be paying them some. And you are putting in 10 hours of work, 12 hours of work, there is no safety net, and there is whatever, even any accident occurs, nothing is being paid, and you can take leave and that leave also is not paid. So there is no safety net. And the digitalization is one aspect where the gig economy, self-platform economy, etc. And there again, there is no scope for union, and people, as it is flexi hours, and they can just go and attend those work whenever they have a time. So that is the only advantage. And again, there is a lack of regularization or kind of any protection for these gig economy women also. So this contractualization of employment, taking the women, adolescent girls also to the labor market and mostly becoming informal, doesn't have any kind of protection system, and the state is supposed to make arrangements and commit there in the budget. It is not happening. And MNRC, I told already 50%, 54% of the women are there, but still there is no change in the budget allocation. And it was much spoken about the Lakpat Didi scheme, where it is claiming that 83 lakh self-help group women with nine self-help groups with 9 crore women, and the finance minister was claiming that it is kind of transforming the socio-economic landscape. But when you go to the field and discuss with the people, 90% of the PR, more than 90% of the women just take this as the microcredit operation. Though we say that they self-help groups, they are into micro enterprise development, but it is very hardly happens with all. And the other important issue is that they are not just dealing with their own savings, they are into microfinance institutions, and these microfinance institutions also go and exploit them, form new groups and disturb the existing groups and make them kind of indebted forever, giving them loan after loan and making them, and they don't pay a lot of issues. You might have read the studies also. So in that way, I'm trying to say, it is even in this study also, sanitation women workers, they borrow at it's called meter rate. So if you, I'm sorry to say, these thing prevailing in the society, 1,000 rupees you borrow, every week you have to pay 100 rupees as an interest only. That 1,000 rupees will be remaining. And pathetically, these women, sanitation workers, are there because this also they are taking to repay the earlier loan borrowed from the microfinance institutions. And there are mushrooming microfinance institutions. MFI is coming to this vulnerable group, and they know that they will, by one way or the other, will make the payment regular, and therefore they capture. But at the end of the day, they are not able to, because they, particularly the rat pickers and all, their income is very poor. It's not regular also, and therefore they go for the meter interest. That is what they call in meters. So it was declared that where the women in the Independence Day and also in the G20 declaration that women development with gender inclusion on employment, digital technology, climate change action, etc. But these announcements are there, and you have committed to certain extent and not really making any financial commitment. That is one area which we need to really probe further. And it was at least in the last year, relatively speaking, and there were some commitments, and in terms of whether it is Mudra loan or the Ujjwala scheme or the Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, some such allocation were there, and now maybe this is the interim budget, and therefore it was not. And so, given this situation, I wonder, we have to wait and see what will happen after this July, when the full budget may be prepared. But now, as of now, there has been overall a decline in the very core areas. Though you just see that the gender budget relatively compared to the earlier years increased. And the best practices as far as the gender responsive budgeting is concerned, it was that 27 states and 11 union territories could implement and take this gender budget statement. And particularly best practices, there may be many states, but I'll talk about Tamil Nadu, to a certain extent Kerala, where Tamil Nadu and Kerala, of course, you have the policy for women recently to 2021 only, Tamil Nadu government also, and in the earlier, just before this budget session, they also approved that. And there are three important proactive schemes recently introduced, and that is really recognizing the agency of women, I could say. Earlier, it was the marriage assistance. The Tamil Nadu government scratched that scheme and renamed as higher education support scheme, wherein the girls who completed 6th to 12th standard in government schools will be given a scholarship of ₹1,000 per month. So totally it will be 10 months, because 2 months are holidays. So a student who is joining a graduate, apart from all the other free education for SC/ST and MBC, there it is called most backward class. This higher education support goes irrespective of any class, caste, nothing. Only qualification, eligibility is government completed. So on the one hand, it is also taking care of increasing the enrollment in government schools, and now it is happening. And there are also studies are going on. Our own Bharadas University Women Studies Department is doing that evaluation. And I did just for the free bus scheme also there, that women are eligible to use free bus, and that I myself did that study for State Planning Commission, and that is actually helping them for the mobility on the one hand, their dependence on other members of the family, and saves around 100 rupees per day, extremely for the larger context, and on an average around 1,500 per month. And this money is available for these women, and more than that, it promotes mobility. They can go anytime, anywhere. That is worth it. The third important scheme is about the unpaid. So-called, we have been lobbying for a long, and the Tamil Nadu government has introduced ₹1,000 to be paid for each women to compensate for their unpaid care work. It is called Women's Rights Amount, and it is not just for the women who are unemployed and only taking care of the household work, but even the women street vendors, women who is running a petty shop. So it recognizes their vulnerability. So in that way, three important schemes recently introduced are, I could say that they are the budget commitments. That is what we always make budget, but you are not reflecting that in the financial allocation. So this has been done. And there are other schemes like free sanitary napkin is for the adolescent girls is being given. And Kerala also, from the Kudumba Shri story, and the gender power has been established, and continuous research is going on, and every now and then there has been gender sensitive initiatives being implemented, and to majorly the largest women's network, Kudumba Shri, is almost supported and backed by the government to occupy their wherever they are interested, they can find place to operate. And that way way, more and more women are joining the Shri stream and really getting empowered. Unlike in other states, the self-help group expectations are not like Shri. So this is now also expanding their wings to various other states, including Andaman, Nicobar Islands, etc. So in that way, I would say that these, but and is also this in Tamil Nadu, the gross enrollment ratio is almost reaching towards 100, and higher education also I already told. And definitely in the years to come, some 3-4 years to come, there will be kind of a change in the work participation rate on the one hand, because it's free mobility, bus, not only mobility, they can choose to work elsewhere where the wages are being paid better, and that was also revealed in the study. And in Kerala, again, the Gender State Coordination Committee is working to take care of what is happening, and they also have Gender Action Committee to monitor the programs. That is very important. Very much there are a number of programs being implemented, but they are not being monitored. And there are also new policy, more initiatives focusing on gender equality and rights. And gender equality has always been on the top of the programs, and it is also inbuilt. And that is what even here in Tamil Nadu it is claimed that it is a inherent inbuilt social justice political system, wherein thanks to the social reformers like from Periyar and Anna, they also laid the stone there for everything to speak in the social justice perspective. And that is why little is happening towards women. And I can't claim that it is totally empowered women to our expectation, but at least slowly it is changing. And in both the states, both Kerala and Tamil Nadu, you also have transgender.
Thank you, Dr. Manimekalai. Everyone wanted to see your face, so please try to switch on your video. But I would like to I'm quite impressed by your comprehensive presentation of the concrete schemes at a national level. 12 schemes you talked about and critically reflected on the schemes on nutrition and education, employment, housing, and occupational diversification, self-employment scheme. And also you talked about the ad hocism of all these schemes which are announced, but they are not implemented. You also brought into consideration the question, what is happening, the precarity of the digital workers in the platform economy. Even you talked about the self-employment scheme of Lakpati Didi, which has been publicized greatly in the current interim budget. And you also explained the political economy of Mudra loan and how women got enslaved by the microfinance institution. At a subnational level, the seven best practices which you have elicited in the area of education, in the area of mobility, free bus, reproductive health issues, and the gender action plan, and the direct strengthening of self-help groups by the state, rather than leaving them to the vagaries of the private microfinance institution, which charge 10% compound rate of interest. So I think it's a very important issues you have flagged up. And now I would like to ask third economist, our Dr. Neha Shah, who is from the Western India. And do you find interim budget addressing the equity and social justice concerns? And according to you, what economic measures are urgently needed in the interim budget or in the budget which will come up in July to address the challenges faced by 40% of Indian youth facing unemployment and extremely low work participation of women? And as Dr. Manimekalai said, even the participation which is there, that is also at the bottom of the economy. It is not a good quality of employment, and erosion of survival base of the rural, urban, and tribal people in the informal sector. Over to Dr. Neha Shah.
Thank you very much, Vibhuti Ben, and thank you, IMPRI. I'll respond by giving a little different perspective. First of all, right since we've started the liberalization process, the role of government fiscal budget and the budget and government expenditure is shrinking. So if we look at the total national economy, now the share of what government spends has been continuously reducing, and it has only come down from now 11%, somewhere around 11%. So it moves around 11.5% to 10.5% in last several years. That means when we are talking about the budget and the government expenditure through budget, we are actually talking about approximately around 11% of the total economy. So that means that the scope is, in that sense, is very, very narrow. But of course, despite of that, budget remains a very important tool because it sets a direction for the way the government wants to lead the economy, or I mean, that's how they are giving a shape to the economy. So that is something very, very important. Uh, it is also important because it becomes an important tool, fiscal tool, for diverting the resources and distributing the resources, redistribution of the resources. Because when we are talking about that now, the 90% of the GDP, the national income, is coming from the private sector, and there's a huge set of the population is not able to catch up with the way the market is progressing. So in that case, whatever policies are coming from the government becomes a very important tool. So having said this, we would like to analyze that in which direction we are moving, and what this particular interim budget is trying to, is indicating. So first of all, like when we want to understand that what exactly is government trying to do, and the numbers that they are presenting in the parliament at the time of the budget, are they actually getting culminated? So when it comes to capital expenditure on infrastructure and all, so most probably the government is exceeding the number that they have presented. But when it comes to the social expenditure, which is actually looking into the redistribution of income, the scenario becomes completely different. So if we look at the last year's budget and the way budget allocation is been given this year, especially on education, health, and even the expenditure on minority and SC, ST and minority, we see there is this very, very drastic I mean, the low expenditure than what is budgetary estimated. For example, in case of general education, if you look at the capital expenditure made by the government, the budgetary estimate was around 296.62 crores of rupees, whereas the actual money, the revised estimate, still 1 month is remaining, so it's not the actual, but revised estimate says the government has spent only 96.03 crores of rupees. In case of medical and public health, which is like emerges a very important concerns post pandemic, right? Government had allotted 5,205.85 crores of rupees. Against that, the actual expenditure so far is only 2,615. So it is almost half of what was been promised. And the worst is the welfare schemes for SC, ST, OBCs and minorities. The actual allocation was somewhere around, as the allocation was low, 234.90 crores of rupees. And against that, again, half of it was spent, that is around 148.50 rupees was spent. So in as such, India's budgetary allocation for health, education, like a primary, these are the primary services that are required for human development and for people to catch up with their lives in the development process, right? As such, the India's allocation or budgetary allocation is as such is low, and what government has spent in last few years is even lower than what has been committed. So that shows what exactly government is the commitment towards these development goals are. So that is one important aspect we need to understand, because a large number of this expenditure affects the women, youth directly, and the SC, ST directly. So obviously the allocation that goes to the specific group becomes very, very low. Another important thing, as we see, why this education expenditure and all these are very, very important, because we are seeing that now we are very fast, we are progressing towards the privatization of education. And education, which is supposed to play an equalizing role, has actually played a discriminatory role. because we have a very different layers of education. We have a premier universities on one hand, we have a granted colleges on the other hand, we have a self-finance colleges on the other hand, and we have a very, and even within there are different layers. High paying colleges, with very high fees, which is very premier, and where affordable education has been imparted by other colleges where the quality of education is very poor. And we see that a large number of youth are not employable when they actually enter into the market. So here the role of the government comes, because if you are giving this responsibility to the private sector, so obviously the private sector is going to be in the self-finance mode. And if they are in the self-finance mode, obviously either they charge very high fee and they have a very favorable student-teacher ratio. For that, they require huge funds. Or if they charge low fee, then the student-teacher ratio is very adverse. And if that is very adverse, obviously the quality of education in the higher education is going to suffer. So specifically when we are talking about young youth, who's entering the labor market, comes out with a very minimal skill, and so they remain in a lowly paid. So budgetary allocation for education, I think, should be considered as a very important criteria if we talk about how budget wants to address the problem of equity, inequality, and social justice. But unfortunately, it doesn't play much significant role over there. Now coming to women and gender budgeting, which my previous panelist has spoken at length in detail about that. So I will not go much in detail, but I'll just highlight few of the important things just to reassert some of the important points. So number one, yes, the labor force participation rate in India has remained very low, and it is one of the lowest in the world, and it has always been a major concern. The recent PLFS data shows us that the labor force participation rate has improved, but as the many studies show, post-pandemic, this rise in the labor force participation of women, especially in the rural area, should not be celebrated and should not be considered as an achievement, because it is mainly the distress jobs that these women are taking. So they are poor quality, low paid, highly exploitative, kind of a job. So obviously, now when we have this women-led growth concept and that narrative coming after the G20 summit, and on which again the forecast, poor women, youth, and farmers, that is the narrative which now the Prime Minister said, and Nirmala Sitharaman ji also built her entire speech on the basis of that. So from that glasses, if we see, so how you try to empower youth or farmer or women or poor. So one, as I said, that the allocation for many of the scheme has remained very low. Number two, Manrega, which has been very important scheme for providing employment opportunities. Manrega has observed in nominal terms, if you look at the numbers may have increased, but in real terms, if you adjust with the inflation, then the actual allocation for Manrega has actually declined. So last year, even though the after pandemic, the demand remained continuously high for the Manrega. This time in this interim budget, in nominal terms, the government has maintained the similar budget of the revised budgetary estimate. So that is where they, they are focusing. As long as the Startup India or the Mudra or Skill India are concerned, there's another important concern which I would like to highlight upon. Much has been already said by my previous two panelists, so I'll just highlight one important point, that in many of these schemes, especially if you look at the Skill India or even the Mudra, startup, the kind of skill that we promote or the kind of startups that we promote are very low skill occupations. So even in the Skill India, there are very low skill and occupations which the skills are easily replicable. So soon what happens is that when the person enters with, gets the skill and enters the market, probably a very short time span, they're able to make some reasonable amount of gain from this particular skill. Very soon, this skill are replicable, are replicated, and there are many competitors in the market, and the market turns into a what in economics we call as almost a perfect competition market where the returns are very, very low. So that becomes highly unremunerative. So though we spend a lot of money and we give a lot of hope, but soon, the reality sets in where I mean, this skills, this enterprises based on the skills does not give adequate returns. So this, I think, is an important point which also we need to understand. Now, as long as the women's, you ask a second question that what we need to do about that, see, one important thing about the women's empowerment is, ensuring that employment. One of the important thing that has been always been talked about is that women are not coming to the labor force and they are not participating in the labor force. That's because their opportunity cost of coming to the labor force is coming out to be very high, because their pay, I mean, the wages that they are getting with general education skills. So when they enter, their wages remains very low. And against that, the care economy, the burden of the care economy, turns out to be very, very high. So if we look at that, why women do not prefer to join the labor force, it's because, they'll see that for a lower way, I mean, rather than accepting a lower wages from the market, it is better we look after the, our own household and the other care related responsibilities. So what is needed is to have a quality care economy. And we have, I mean, and this issue has been raised again and again for several years in India. In India, we do not have, a good quality creche. Forget about quality. I mean, as in your introductory note, you also said that the number of creches are, reducing. So number one, number is itself is reducing, and second, they are not a quality crèche where many parents would like to keep their children. Similarly, old age care system also needs to be strengthened, because that is also, as the longevity is increasing in India, right? So I think that is also a segment where support is required for women so that they can come out and go. Many social security schemes, which has discouraged a non-availability of the social security schemes, which has discouraged women. For example, maternity leave benefit. So we have a good maternity leave benefit act, but when it comes to implementation, the scope is very, very limited, and primarily to government sector, which is shrinking very rapidly, and in the private sector, it is almost defunct. Nobody is implementing that. So unless we do not strengthen the systems which provides entire ecosystem in the economy, which facilitates women to enter the workforce, I think it will be very difficult to expect women to join the workforce, and our women workforce participation would remain very low. So I think now our budget needs to reflect, these concerns, which are not new concerns, which are old concerns, which has been said again and again. So I think now our budget needs to reflect upon this. Yeah, thank you. This is the new point I wanted to make.
Ma'am, your mic. Thank you so much, Dr. Neha Shah. Professor Patel, your mic.
Dr. Neha, you brought out a very important concern, which is a long-standing 40 years of women's movements demand, and gender economists have been highlighting about the gender care economy. And unless we provide the support services, mainly childcare and elderly care, I think it will be very difficult for women to come. And even when they have degrees, they get there are glass ceilings and there are sticky floors, which also don't give them upward mobility. That also becomes an impediment. It's very important. And now I would like to ask Mr. Now Dr. Sanghamitra Dhar, you are working more at a subnational level, and you are working with several state governments and union union territories. Can you just tell us the role of UN Women in making national and subnational budget gender responsive? And do you find reflection of your efforts in the interim budget? And can you give an example of gender versus gender responsive versus gender transformative budgetary measures, and what is the pathway for gender transformative budget? How can we make it, at least not if it is not in interim budget, but in the next budget, how can we make it? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Patel, and thank you to the earlier panelist for a very detailed discussion. Just to update Professor Patel, I am now leading the JRB program in UN Women, which is taking care of both the national and state level subnational work. So just to give you an overview of the UN Women work that we are doing through the governance unit, we actually actively engage in the JRB space in the country, and as Paramita has mentioned earlier, since 2005-6, we have been the technical strategic partner for the longest of time with the nodal ministry, which is the Ministry of Women and Child Development. And more recently, UN Women is providing technical assistance of handholding to more than 12 states on implementing GRB, and also to around 30 central ministries were handheld in reporting of the GBS through the PMU that has been set up in the ministry. So I find this encouraging trend, because I see civil aviation and power reporting for the first time. So that actually is a good thing for me and for everyone working in the JRB space, because even a drop is important in the overall ocean. So that being said, we see that there is a rise of around 38 ministries and departments reporting in the GBS this time. The actual number crunching is still ongoing, so I would not want to cite any numbers at this point. So, but yeah, very roughly, it seems like 6.5% is the GBS this year, as against 5% last year. But we will be more clear about the numbers once we have gone through all the GBS documents. So based on this, as you have asked about the GRB work that UN Women does, we have been a strategic partner for the ministry all these years, and more recently we and actually in 2024 we might actually expand to more states, because a lot of interest, as Paramita has also rightly pointed out, that there is a momentum in this conversation, and a lot of subnationals are more keen to understand and start working on it. Many central ministries are also very keen on understanding this and working towards kind of reporting on that. But having said that, it's not just the reporting part of it, as all of you have pointed out. So I just don't want to repeat what has already been said. We when we look at the transformation, we actually are looking at the plans and policies, the proactive plans and policies, those that are changing. So even this what do you call this, the redefinition of caste as very strategically put by the Honorable Finance Ministry, gives us a very positive view of the social stratification concept that that our country has, and probably over a period we can change that narrative also. But that is something that will be in the future. And when we look at the transformative measures, I would only point out that in the GRB space, we are seeing a lot of, because as Patel, as Professor Patel, you rightly know that it is the sensitivity that gives rise to the response, and that gives rise to the transformation, right? So that overall circular conversation is a time-taking process, and it is actually a societal and a generational thing that takes place. So all the efforts that all of you have taken in the past, that has actually culminated to all the awareness that is there currently, and we are leading that work further on. So the transformations are happening in many places, like Maharashtra has the transgenders also added in the GBS, right? So there are a couple of other states also who report on this thing on transgenders in the GBS. And as part of the GBS, as part of the GRB conversation, a lot of conversations are happening about the overall policy changes. So be it the pre-budget consultations or these mechanisms are being more actively used by the subnationals and the nationals. So those things are something positive that that we see for the country, and we are very hopeful for a brighter and more engaging participation of the government. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much,
Subnational level, subnational level challenges and what are the good practices which are happening. Now we have my Awasthy ji, who is working on the budget for the queer community. And as you also mentioned that Maharashtra has included budget in the budgetary community, the budgetary provisions, the transgender persons needs and demands. Let us see what is the actual ground reality. Over to Maya Awasthy ji.
Thank you, Professor VIBHUTI and IMPRI for organizing this session. It's like a homecoming back whenever I talk with IMPRI sessions. And also, I want to thank all the economists and the experts who spoke before me. And not that on grounds of economics and all, but then I'll stay on the more of the realistic ground level scenario. So just giving up with the entire this particular present government from last 10 years, one of the thing which came was on 2014, the first time when this government came. And they came with a slogan called "Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas," and that was a year when prior to that, I mean that was a year when Nalsa judgment came and third gender recognition was happened. Okay, then the other cycle they did it in 2019, where they increased. They came to the more evolved version of the statement that Sabka Saath, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas or Sabka Vishwas. Okay. And that was a year when the TG Act came. So you can understand, like, the reason I'm putting this as a connection with both of the episode, because the two remarkable incident happened in the history of India political movement and also the transgender movement. And they happened the same year, same time. Okay. Now, when we talk about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, so where are we talking about Sabka Saath? I mean, where is the transgender in Sabka Saath? Okay. Where the positioning of Sabka Saath? Okay. We're not talking about in Vikas, who are there. If you hear the yesterday's budgetary speech, you only hear one or two times the word transgender. The entire 84 minutes. So I'm going to say, like, this is where I want to say, like, there is no something called a sabka saath. Sabka saath mein sabka hona chahiye. There was also we talk about in any budgetary, maybe the central level, state level, or any level budgetary, we talk about budgetary in a binary format. Okay. We have to come with a new evolved version of budgetary as a gender neutral budget. It doesn't talk about any gender, but take care of all the genders. Okay, the gender neutral budget is deep now. The thing which we like. And I request all the economists to take into consideration that whenever they are speaking at the different forum, this should be the language we all should speak. Because gender equality, when we talk about, we only talk about women. And I'm sorry, I'm not against feminist or the women movement, but why should we leave any gender or any particular person when it's talk about gender equality per se? Okay. Even we heard about all the speaker talking about women, the work the budget has been talking on women, but where is, I just give a small example where on the budget part, the reason I'm telling you because in the speech, we talk about yesterday's speech, we see that there were very remarkable statement given, which talks about increase in X number of thing, increase in GDP, increase in the capital budget, everything. But then that is, or in skilling, they have spoke about so many percent of people has been taken care of for skilling, youth has been taken care of, because they have a denominator to it. And thus they were able to give the percentage of how many people got skilled, or how many gender has, as a men and women, they have got up. But when we talk about trans, there is no denominator. For the only reason because in 2011, when the Sensex was done, they came with a random figure of transgender, and there is no count on who can realistically talk about the numbers. So when we have we don't have a denominator, how can we say that there is a progress or not progress, or what we are talking about per budgetary utilization also. Per person utilization also we can't talk about. So that is one thing. Government have central government have released some fund, which is 265 crores for 5 years for Smile scheme. Now, Smile scheme we are talking about. Smile is the scheme which has been launched in February 2022, on 12th February 2022, which talks about support for marginalized individual for living and enterprise. This is called a Smile scheme, which have two components. One is transgender, second is a bakery. Okay. So in the transgender, if you see the total budget for 5 years, that is 2021 to 2026, 2021-22 to 2025-26, total budgetary breakup is the allotment is 265 crores. Okay. Now I'll give you the last 3 years realistic figure. What was it? In 2021-22, it was allotted 20 crores. Okay. And again, it was revised. There was a revision, which was again a 20 crore only. There was no revision, but just say. And then utilization of that was only 1.91 crore. That is 9.55%. Whereas in year 22-23, the allotment was 30 crores. And advisory budget, if you see, it was also 30 crore only. There was no revision. And the utilization of this budget is 0.12 crores. That means only for 0.40%, 40% utilization. And 2023-24, the budgetary provision was 52.91 crores. But when it got revised, it's got 22.82 crores. That is 50% of it has been revised. But actual expenditure, we don't know. Okay, that is what I want to bring to notice, that there is a decline. There is a budgetary which has been already been mentioned, but there's a decline utilization of the budget. If it is decline, where the things have been gone wrong, or where the money is being utilized. Now for next 2 years, in I just mentioned about 22-20, 23-24. For 24-25, the provision is made of 63.9 crores. And for 25-26, it is 76.88 crores. Now, if it is declining, you can understand. First of all, it's not only declining, it is getting revised every year. Okay. Top of it, it is getting decline. I'm going to say you can understand where the welfare we are talking about. Okay. And if it also declining, we have to understand the reason. From the ground reality, I'll tell you, under SMILE scheme, there were lots of scheme which were given for transgender. I'm specifically talking about transgender per se. So of 265 crore ka hisab kya tha? So in this 265 crores, the SMILE scheme, they mention about shelter home for Garima Gray for transgender. They talk about scholarship of trans person for higher education, skilling, health, specifically on Ayushman TG, Ayushman Bharat, which is specifically for TG, which is for individual person, not for the one which we have it for the other people, that is for the family, but this is 5 lakh rupees for individual. Now, out of which provision of Garima Gray was done, but the fund was not released for last 18 months. Okay, so that is one of the question of concern. Well, if you mention the scheme, then there should be an equal flow of the funds. Okay, under the scholarship of higher education, it didn't even started. With Ayushman health card, it has been announced, but there is no work done on it. Okay, skilling, it is through PM Daksh or the other format of skilling, but no one went to get trained into it because the system was not sensitized towards how to handle the transgender candidate when they are coming for the thing. So people face discrimination stigma. It's like, you breathe and breathe every day. It's like every day you face stigma and discrimination when it comes to transgender.
Yeah, but Mayaji, I want to ask that if you have only financial allocation, but when the admissions are not given, when they are the bureaucrats and the administrators and educational institutions don't give admission, what is use of the money? It will just be parked in the ministry, but it will never be utilized. So what do you suggest, that only financial allocation is enough, or you also need a law, the way we have a scheduled Anti-Atrocity Act to cover the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe? If they face discrimination, stigma, and atrocity, then the state is there to protect them. Do you think that such law should be coupled with, it should be backed by the financial allocation?
Professor VIBHUTI, frankly speaking, there is a law. There is a law. NALSA judgment, if you pick up, it talks about the ombudsman or the addressal mechanism. If you talk about TG Act, it talks about the addressal. There is something called a transgender protection cell, which has to be done from within all the state. I am a part of transgender protection cell of Mumbai because I'm based in Mumbai, and I'm also a transgender protection cell thing for Maharashtra state. So I'm not only for district, for the state also I'm a representative. But how are they, where the mechanism we're talking about? There are law, but there is no mechanism for it. Law will not, all the system will not run on its own. It have to be run by people or the governance. Okay, there are transgender welfare board in each state as per the law. There should be. There is national council at national level who takes care of it. There are, Dr. VIBHUTI, it is not about law to be having that. There is a mechanism which has been already been set up by lots of people, and it also have seen that this has been the mandate by the government, by the Supreme Court, by the TG law, but then it not been functional the way they should be functioning. Okay, so that is one thing. Second thing, one of the most important thing I want to mention about is,
hello, is it a law or a directive? Is it like a Vishaka directive we had earlier, or is it actually an act?
So TG Act is a law.
But in that, about the discrimination
has been
and
mentioned.
stigma.
Yes,
Okay.
there has been mentioned. This has been mentioned, but at NALSA there is a directive. Okay, for state, central, and UT. So that is one thing. One of the most important thing I want to make it clear, like, there is an inequality between the states also. Okay, I'm going to say there are states which come with their transgender policies and all, and they're very fantastic policies. If you pick up any of the 4 or 5 policies you read, they sound very beautiful and they are been implemented the way they have to be, but it have to be uniform to across India. I'm going to say, when we talk about where law is common across India, the same way the policy should be common for all across India. Okay, one thing is that few of the point which I want to bring it from the budgetary statement which was, or the speech which was given yesterday. So one thing is that taxation has been talked about, but there is no relaxation in taxation. But what we see, there was a few things which has been very impressive for all the common people. But the process was written easy now, more easy. And then there is no more, they have also reduced the easy the burden of how to process the taxation. Okay, but most of the time we always say that transgender कहाँ tax भरते हैं, उनका formal income ही नहीं है तो कहाँ भरते हैं. But then let me bring it to the all panel and the participant here that we do pay tax, because indirect taxes, whatever we pay in form of GST or the service tax or the goods tax, what we utilize, these are the tax we pay. So we are the part of the Indian economy, and we do help in the Indian economy to grow. Okay. Second thing is, if you see the most remarkable point which was given yesterday was the on infrastructure. Okay. So the capita expenditure has been increased by 11%, and increase of capita income is always good for the economy because it directly connect to the infrastructure. Okay, but if you see and how important it is, because it's third year when government have said that 50 years interest-free money should be interest-free money support loan to be supported to capital income per state. Okay, and which is a tune of 1.3 lakhs crore. Okay, so if the infrastructure is the capital expenditure has been increased, then it have increased the infrastructure, and you should include a transgender into it. It will give more employment. Building any infrastructure, include transgender as employees also. This will give the equal. When I'm talking about the gender neutral policies, these are the gender neutral policies I'm talking about. Housing scheme which was talked about yesterday, that PM Awas Yojana, Rural Awas Yojana, they have increased the allotment of the PM Rural Awas Yojana and housing for middle class. But where they talked about the gender equality, whether they will be including transgender into it, and specifically the rural transgender people, where they don't have any source of information for getting such information, which has been, I mean, they would have never heard the word budget itself, कि ऐसा कुछ होता भी है साल में कभी. And one of the most important thing I'm talking about is the 4 pillars which we talked about: poor, the poverty, women, youth, and farmer. If you see, there is an intersectionality between them only. So a youth farmer may be poor, a poor can be a woman, things like that. But if there is an intersectionality, how do you differentiate into it? And last, one of the points which I want to mention is that employment is something which has not been spoken about yesterday by the thing, how we tackle the employment, because you're talking about youth, but you're not talking about the employment. This is the ticking bomb which we are sitting on. When you're talking about employment, I would like to say that within the few years or the last 5 years, we see that lots of IIT has been developed, lot of triple IT has been developed, lots of university has been made, and you will see that these institute will produce more young unemployed people. How we will be taking about? We are not talking about employment within the transgender also. There are lots of unemployment. So these are the points which I want to cover it.
Also sanitation, no, Mayaji?
Sanitation, yeah. Sanitation is also one thing, because we don't believe on sanitization, because frankly speaking, transgender people live in slums. There's no proper sanitization. There is no proper water supply. And this is, I'm talking of the urban part. you can imagine about the rural or the tribals.
And the toilet facility, no, everywhere the toilets are either for men and women, and
Yes.
they are not.
So these are the, I'm just when we are talking about the capital expenditure, these are the things which we have to make it more utilization. I mean, the people may talk about the AC toilet. I don't know what AC toilet would make difference, but why about not getting a toilet for trans person or a gender neutral toilet? Okay, there are examples in our state, in our country, where have gender neutral toilets. This can be taken a learning lessons for people. So here I would like to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. You have really expanded our horizons of sensitivity and the understanding, because most of the economists also see the economic sectors only in terms of binary. They don't see it in terms of gender spectrum. So it's very important contribution you have made. Now, Shri Sailesh Mishra ji, who you have been fighting for the cause of elderly. Your organization, Silver Enning, is doing brilliant service and extremely important institution in the city of Mumbai for the elderly people. Now, what is your response to the financial allocation in the interim budget for senior citizens? And according to you, what should be the priority areas for elderly inclusive and elderly friendly budget? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, VIBHUTI ma'am, for
Again, you are also trained as an economist, I must say. Yeah. Okay.
So thank you, VIBHUTI ma'am, for inviting me here. And I'm very happy to hear so many panelists, and Maya ji gave a different perspective. Maya ji ne bahut acha bataya, and I remember yesterday, Finance Minister did not utter Senior Citizen Award. So, Viksit Bharat का विकास कैसे होगा when senior citizens are not there? सबका साथ, सबका विकास, but seniors are missing from the budget. I think it is very sad this time, and not very happy with that. But I was I found we have to understand the aging senior citizen issue, older person issue. It is controlled by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It doesn't have any ministry, department, any commission. And in that ministry, there is a National Institute of Social Defense, NISD, and RRT. So for 149 million people, old people in India, there is 10% of the population. There is no ministry, there is no department, there is no national commission. So that is a tragedy. The Ministry of Social Justice Empowerment got a budgetary allocation this year of 14,000 crores. This is what I read. It's supposed to be 28% increase. But last year, aging, older person got only 212 crores. Not also 5% of the total budget of MSJE. So senior citizens are very neglected and ignored constantly, not by this government, but every government it has been done. We should understand that there is a national policy of older person, which was made in 1999, which is again a guideline. There is no law, or it has not been passed in Parliament. And then we have national policy of senior citizen, with its name was converted. And then we have an act called Maintenance Act, which protects senior citizens, again made in 2007, passed as a law, but still not implemented all over India. So seniors are in dilemma. They are whose baby? They are orphanage like. So they are controlled by different ministry, by health ministry, by women and children, by revenue, finance, transport. So there is one nodal agency which is not coordinating with other ministry. I think that is the biggest challenge. Government of India, with constant activism with all of us, all NGOs, had done some good work in last 2-3 years. I mentioned the scheme actually, PATEL Abhyudaya Yojana. Then they had skill and livelihood program. Then last year they had promoting silver economy, promoting startup. Then they started national helpline. They had self-help group for old people, and also employment exchange for old people. But again, I find sometimes this is all slogans, this is all words which has been pushed, but there is no budget. Only 212 crore budget. How it's going to look after all these people? And it is not possible. We don't need words. We don't need slogans. We need actual work. You have to also remember 90% of the older people don't have any social security. 90% of the old people, out of 149 million, 90% people don't have any social security or financial backing. Then there is 80 plus population, older person are growing. So we are getting more very old people. At present, India has 10% of old people. It will be 356 million in 2050, around 20, 30, 35, 30% of the population. So there is no proper planning. there is no coordination between state and central. There is no coordination with state and municipal corporation. So nothing goes to the last man, last older person. Also, 40% of older people are abused. So because there is no proper implementation of law, they are not provided proper security. And 10% people suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's, the mental illness. So we have some seniors, some old younger people who want to look after their older parents, but they don't have any help from the government. There is no support. In fact, government has started 18% GST on care of older person and accommodation. 18% GST we have to pay if you want to take care of your parents. So that is a big tragedy, and we are asking for the withdrawal. Last in 2020, government withdrew concession given to senior citizen railways, and they said because of pandemic we can't. But it is not restored. 40-50%. And remember, railway is in use by poor people, and they have been deprived of the concession. They can't travel, so they have to pay the full money, and that is a big problem. Old age pension, we have 800 rupees, 1000 rupees per month for older person. What you can buy of 800 rupees? So we are asking increase old age pension. That is the biggest. I think government is neglecting in this part. And there's a new old people. They need diapers. They need medicine. They need insulin. They need medicine for Alzheimer's dementia. They need help for caregiver. Caregiver cost per day 8 hours is 800 to 1200 rupees. There's 30,000 rupees you have to spend on caregiving. So from where I'm going to earn, how much training I'm going to have? Seniors don't have money. They can't put in the FD because we don't have enough interest. So there's a lot of problem and issues where seniors can't be handled. And we need tax rebate for younger people to take care of old people. I think this is required. And national dementia and mental health policy for older persons, where they will be properly provided proper care, not only financial but social, economical also. We need to spend more on LASI, and UNFP has very good report of older person. If government can pick that and that can be implemented, all this is said better if you don't have budgetary allocation. If you don't have funds, so you can't do anything. So you have big, very good national policy of older person with no fund. It is just talking blah blah and doing nothing. I expect government in the coming budget where they have the full-fledged budget, they will have item-wise allocation for employment, for care, for helpline, for VIBHUTI Yojana, and they should have strict guidelines for states to implement policies. Maharashtra state doesn't have the policy implemented. Only Kerala and Karnataka, I suppose, they have. So it is not happening, and budget only every year different budget and not including senior citizen into it. It is a tragedy because Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas will not happen. We need age equality. As you have gender equality, we need age equality. No discrimination between ages. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sailesh, for again making the discourse far more meaningful for 143 crore Indian citizens who are elderly. And now we all know that the population pyramid is becoming top heavy. We have a more aging population, and we need to put the policies in place. And number of reports have been written. The series of that UNFPA series, which you talk about, state-wise data also is there. Now, the only thing is the political will to do something. And I think there should not be slogan. The slogans have to be translated into the actual action. For action, we also need state support for both very good policies and structures and systems, and at the same time, financial backing. Very important. Now we have our last young activist. She's a superstar of the social movement, Miss Deepa Pawar. आप हमें बताएंगे कि SC ST और जो भी मार्जिनलाइज कम्युनिटीज है, आप तो डिग्निटी एंड के बारे में भी काम करती हैं, तो पहले आप अपना पूरी उनकी स्थिति क्या है वो बताइए, और उसके बाद में सरकार को क्या करना चाहिए इसके बारे में हमें अवगत कीजिए। दीपा जी।
यस, मेरा आवाज आ पा रहा है?
आ रहा है मैडम? या
यस, मैं थोड़ी इंटीरियर में हूँ, तो यहाँ पे नेट जाता आता है, तो थोड़ा सा मुझे झेलिए। एक्चुअली इंटरिम बजट की चर्चा जब से शुरू हुई है और माननीय निर्मला जी ने जो है वो हमारे सामने रखा है, एक ही मिनट,
मेरा ब्लूटूथ जो है वो चार्जिंग ऑफ हो गया है अभी मुझे ऐसी ही बात करनी पड़ेगी।
हाँ, आ रहा है आवाज, अच्छे से आ रहा है।
यस यस। तो मैं यहाँ पे बात करना चाहूंगी जिनके साथ मैं काम करती हूँ। मैं खुद नोमैडिक ट्राइब से हूँ, और नोमैडिक डिनोटिफाइड ट्राइब जो है वो सेंट्रल लिस्ट में जो है वो ओबीसी में आते हैं, और स्टेट वाइज जो है उनके आइडेंटिटी अलग अलग है। वो मेरी कम्युनिटी है जो महाराष्ट्र में नोमैडिक में आती है, तो कई वो स्पेशल बैकवर्ड क्लासेस में आते हैं, तो कई वो ओबीसी में आते हैं, तो कई वो एसटी में भी आते हैं। मुझे बजट को लेकर ये लग रहा है कि अगर कौन लोग कितने हैं ये पता ही नहीं है, लोगों की जनसंख्या क्या है ये पता ही नहीं है। हमारे देश में नोमैडिक डिनोटिफाइड ट्राइब की जनसंख्या में उनकी भागीदारी और हिस्सेदारी कितनी है पता ही नहीं है। तो बजटरी प्रोसेस के अंदर क्या जस्टिस के साथ जो है वो अलोकेशन हो पाएंगे? तो मुझे भी वो पिक्चर जो है एक तरह से नजर आ रहा है। एक दो चीजें आसपास के प्रोसेस में मुझे लग रही है कि पूरे देश के करोड़ों की आबादी का बजट बताते हुए हम 1 घंटा भी नहीं ले पा रहे हैं। 58 मिनट में जो है वो बजट हम सामने रख पा रहे हैं, तो उसका विश्लेषण पूरा भारत मिलके किस तरह से करेगा? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का आर्टिकल 112 बताता है कि बजट जो है वो रिटर्न डॉक्यूमेंट में आपको जो है वो लोगों के सामने लाना है। लेकिन इस बार का अगर हम ध्यान में रखें, तो मेरी जितनी स्टडी हुई है कि इकोनॉमिक सर्वे रिपोर्ट जो है वो ना आके द इंडियन इकोनॉमी रिव्यू जो है वो सामने 74 पेज का रखा गया है। तो ऐसे हालातों में विलिंग बहुत मायने रखती है कि इंटरसेक्शनलिटी के बारे में आप कैसे सोच रहे हो। अगर प्रीवियस ईयर के बजट के ऊपर भी ध्यान रखे, जो खासकर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ सोशल जस्टिस का है, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ ट्राइबल अफेयर्स का है, तो हमें नजर आएगा कि टोटल बजट के 38%, टोटल बजट के 23% बजट जो है वो स्पेंड नहीं किया गया है। तो बजट ये बस एक डॉक्यूमेंट ना होते हुए एक पॉलिटिकल विल का अकाउंटेबिलिटी है कि किस तरह से बजट जो है वो सबसे मार्जिनलाइजेशन पॉपुलेशन को ध्यान में रखकर खर्च किया जाए। वो मेरे लिए बहुत ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है। एनटीडीएनटी, माइग्रेटरी ट्राइब, अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में काम करने वाले घुमांतू ट्राइब, ये सारे बहुत ज्यादा डिजास्टर के नजदीक होने वाले कम्युनिटीज है, और एनवायरमेंटल जस्टिस के साथ जुड़े हुए कम्युनिटी है। तो मैं जब देखती हूँ कि एनवायरमेंटल और फॉरेस्ट क्लाइमेट चेंज के लिए बजटरी प्रोविजन बस 1.4 से जो है वो इंक्रीज किया गया है, और दूसरी तरफ क्लाइमेट एंड रेजिलियंस को लेकर जो हम इंडिकेटर्स दे रहे हैं कि हम सोलर पावर के ऊपर काम करेंगे, हम बायो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के ऊपर काम करेंगे, वाइंड एनर्जी के ऊपर हम काम करेंगे, और कोल के कोल से उत्पादन करते हुए वहां पे हम काम करेंगे, तो मुझे एक डर भी लग रहा है कि ट्राइबल जल, जंगल और जमीन के नारे का क्या बजट के अंदर ख्याल रखा गया है? वो उस सेंसिटिविटी से सोचा गया है कि ये प्लांट, ये प्रोजेक्ट, ये सिस्टम, ये उत्पादन किन की जमीनों पे होने वाला है? तो जंगल के प्रिजर्वेशन के बारे में क्या कोई भी अकाउंटेबिलिटी और कटिबद्धता निर्मला जी के भाषण में मुझे उस तरह से नहीं नजर आई, और मुझे इन सारी चीजें जो है वो व्यतीत करती है। दूसरा एक लगता है कि एनटीडीएनटी कम्युनिटी के आप कोई भी रिसर्च अगर उठा के देखेंगे तो आपको पता चलेगा कि बेसिक सैनिटेशन फैसिलिटीज है, मतलब यूरिन को कहाँ जाना है, शुद्ध पानी आपको पीने मिलेगा कि नहीं, आपके पास चार दीवारों का घर होगा कि नहीं। 78% से ज्यादा नोमैडिक एंड डिनोटिफाइड होमलेस है, लैंडलेस है, वो वॉललेस फैमिली के साथ जो है वो कम्युनिटी के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं। और मुझे हमेशा लगता है कि लैंडलेस होना अपने आप में हर तरह से मार्जिनलाइजेशन का सामना करने की तरह है। तो क्या ये पॉपुलेशन के बारे में सरकार समझ रही है, आर्थिक निधियां समझ रही है? मुझे ये पैनल पे आने के लिए मुझे लगता है कि हमारी सदियां गई है कि हम बजट के बारे में बात करें, हमारे हिस्से के बारे में, हमारी भागीदारी के बारे में हम बात करें। और ये इंक्लूजन की जो एक तरह का उत्तरदायित्व है ये किसका रहेगा, ये वचनबद्धता जो है किसकी रहेगी, ये मुझे बार बार पूछने का मन कर रहा है। निर्मला जी जो है वो, उनके पास और एक मिनिस्ट्री है मेरे पढ़ाई में आया, और वो कॉर्पोरेट अफेयर्स की मिनिस्ट्री है, और वहां पे कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स जो है वो 30% से नीचे 22% तक आया है, राइट। और इसको भी काफी देखने की जरूरत है कि सहूलियत जो है वो किसको दी जाएगी, क्या वो वर्गवादी ढांचे से जुड़े हुए लोगों को दी जाएगी, जो भांडवली व्यवस्था के जुड़े जुड़े हुए लोग हैं उनको दी जाएगी, या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने जो बोला है सोशल जस्टिस का फ्रेमवर्क कि सबसे लास्ट माइल लोगों के बारे में आपको सोचना पड़ेगा, उनकी सहूलियत के बारे में क्या भाष्य किया जाएगा, क्या वचन वहां पे दी जाएगी। टॉप 5 मिनिस्ट्री जो मैंने देखी कि मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोड एंड ट्रांसपोर्ट, मिनिस्ट्री रेलवे एंड मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कंज्यूमर अफेयर्स। मैं ढूंढने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ कि सबसे ज्यादा बजट अलोकेशन अगर यहाँ पे जाने का सोच रहे हैं तो मैं NTDNT, माइग्रेटरी ट्राइब, विस्थापित आदिवासी, प्रकल्पग्रस्त आदिवासी, इन लोगों को मैं ये बिग बजट के अंदर कहाँ पे ढूंढूं, किस तरह से ढूंढूं, ये मैं ढूंढने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ। मेरे पास कोई ठोस जवाब उसके नहीं है कि ये बजट स्कैन होते हुए निचली तबके तक किस तरह से आएगा। और एक दूसरा एक बिटर ट्रूथ भी लग रहा है कि ये सारे विकास की परिभाषाएं के अंदर शायद रास्तों पे पड़े हुए हमारे टेंट, हमारी बस्तियां, कच्ची पक्की झुग्गियां, हम जिन इनफॉर्मल फॉर्मल सेक्टर में काम करते हैं वो तो वहां पे तो नहीं, एक तरह के जो है साइलेंट और हिडन अटैक होंगे। तो मुझे काफी सोच में डाल दिया है कि किस मिनिस्ट्री के ऊपर हमारा सबसे ज्यादा जो है बजट जा रहा है। चिल्ड्रन और बजट के बारे में आप सबने बात की और वो इतना पिद्दू सा बजट अगर चिल्ड्रन एंड बजट के लिए देंगे तो आप जब नीचे आएंगे NTDNT जहाँ पे सबसे नीचे है वहां पे आधे किलो का अनाज भी मिलेगा क्या स्कूल और आंगनवाड़ी से, जहाँ पे पोषक आहार की हम बात कर रहे हैं। हमारे आश्रम शालाओं की दीवारें फिर से रिपेयरिंग होगी, वहां पे शुद्ध पानी मिलेगा, वहां पे फैंस होंगे। तो सोशल जस्टिस का बजट हो या चिल्ड्रन और एजुकेशन का बजट हो, मुझे लगता है कि NTDNT माइग्रेटरी और अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में और ज्यादा अनडिग्निफाइड काम करने वाले जो ट्राइब कम्युनिटी है वो इनविजिबल है एक तरह से। तो उसका उत्तरदायित्व बढ़ाने की काफी ज्यादा जरूरत है। एक थोड़ा टेंशन का मुझे यहाँ पे लग रहा है कि मैं मेरे कम्युनिटी की फर्स्ट जनरेशन ऑफ लर्नर हूँ। पूरे कम्युनिटी के अंदर फर्स्ट मास्टर्स होने वाली लड़कियों में मैं आती हूँ। अगर मुझे अभी कोई बोले कि आपका प्री मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप जो है वो डिक्रीज किया जा रहा है, प्री मैट्रिक माइनॉरिटी स्कॉलरशिप जो है वो डिक्रीज किया जा रहा है, आपका फ्री कोचिंग जो है उसके बारे में हम बजट डिक्रीज कर रहे हैं, आपके पोस्ट मैट्रिक SC के स्टूडेंट के बजट के बारे में हम डिक्रीज करने की बात कर रहे हैं, तो ये तो हिस्टोरिकल कोलैप्सेशन है। SC, NTDNT, ST का ये फर्स्ट जनरेशन लर्नर है जहाँ पे वो पढ़ाई करने की कोशिश कर रहा है और आगे आ रहा है, और वहां पे अगर बजट खास फंडामेंटल चीजों के अंदर डिक्रीज होते हुए नजर आएंगे तो हम ड्रॉप आउट नहीं होंगे, हम पुश बैक कर मुझे हमें हमें धक्का दिया जाएगा, क्योंकि ड्रॉप आउट होने का इल्जाम भी हम पे ही डाला जाता है, लेकिन एक्चुअली हमें पुश किया जाएगा कि आप एजुकेशन के जो है वो मेन कतार पे ना आइए। दूसरा एक मैं स्लोगन हर जगह पे ढूंढ रही हूँ और डेमोक्रेसी की बात करते हुए मुझे वो अड़चन का लगता है कि मोदीज गारंटी हर भाषण में, हर रैली में, तो ये मोदीज गारंटी है या डेमोक्रेसी की गारंटी है, ये रिपब्लिक की गारंटी है। ये थोड़ा सा अड़चन का जो है कि बजटरी प्रोसेस, बजटरी थॉट, कॉन्सेप्ट, उसका प्रेजेंटेशन ये डेमोक्रेसी के ढांचे में होता है, ये किसी व्यक्ति पूजा और व्यक्तिगत ढांचे में नहीं होता है। तो फंडामेंटल मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि गारंटी कौन दे रहा है, हम गारंटी और हम ही काबिलियत डेमोक्रेसी की किससे मांगे, हम डेमोक्रेसी से मांगे या किसी इंडिविजुअल चेहरे से मांगे। तो ये स्लोगन मुझे थोड़ा जो है अड़चन का लग रहा है। आत्मनिर्भर भारत रोजगार योजना का बजट जो है वो 150 करोड़ तक जो है वो डिक्रीज किया गया है, और रोजगार के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बेरोजगारी जिस भयान अवस्था से बढ़ रही है, गंभीर अवस्था से बढ़ रही है, तो सोशल जस्टिस रिपब्लिक के मायने में अगर हम सही मायने में बात करें तो 5-6 इंडिकेटर बहुत उभर के आते हैं। हेल्थ, एजुकेशन, इवन किसी ने यहाँ पे बात की कि जो बढ़ती हुई एट्रोसिटीज है, दमन है, इनसिक्योरिटीज है, इसके बारे में एक हार्मनी, एक इक्विटी बेस्ड अप्रोच के लिए क्या हम कुछ कंट्रीब्यूट करने वाले हैं कि मार्जिनलाइजेशन के लोग सेफ फील करें, उन्हें लगे कि वो इनका देश है। एक एंटी के बारे में अगर खास करके मैं बात करूं तो हम ऑलमोस्ट डॉक्यूमेंट एबिलिटी नहीं रखने वाली कम्युनिटी है। तो जब ये पॉलिसीज आती है, जब ये योजनाओं के अंदर कंट्रीब्यूशन होता है, एक कागजी टुकड़े के कारण वैसे भी हम आइसोलेटेड किए जाते हैं, हम अपने आप को प्रूफ नहीं कर पाते हैं। मुझे लगता है कि क्या बजटरी इंक्लूजन के अंदर डॉक्यूमेंट एबिलिटी और मार्जिनलाइज लास्ट माइल लोगों को मेन स्ट्रीमिंग लाने की इच्छा शक्तियां क्या होगी, वो किस तरह से वो एक्सेस करे। जैसे विभूति आप पूछ रहे थे कि क्या बस बजट के ऊपर बात होगी, मुझे लगता है कि बात होनी चाहिए एक्सेसिबिलिटी की। बात होनी चाहिए उपलब्धि की। और वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, बजट जिस ढांचे में शासन और प्रशासन तक आता है, शासन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन जो उसको एग्जीक्यूट करने की कोशिश करता है, क्या उनका नजरिया है कि एंटी जैसे मार्जिनलाइज लोगों को सरकारी तिजोरी में का बेनिफिट मिले, वो उनको किसी योजना में मिले, वो हेल्थ में मिले, वो एजुकेशन में मिले, वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में मिले, वो डिजास्टर रेजिलियंस में मिले। तो उसकी इच्छा शक्तियां जो है वो पॉलिटिकल विल से ही आएगी। ये एनजीओज कम कर पाएंगे, मूवमेंट जो है वो एडवोकेसी कर पाएगी, लेकिन चातक पक्षी की तरह सारे बजटरी प्रोविजंस को सुनते हैं, क्योंकि लगता है कि वहां पे भी कुछ चीजें होगी जिसको बेस बनाते हुए हम हमारे डेवलपमेंट के बारे में बात करेंगे। लेकिन वो चीजें होती हुई जो है मुझे कम नजर आ रही है। और यहाँ पे बहुत ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है बजटरी लिटरेसी, कि क्या एंटी मार्जिनलाइज पीपल को पता है उनके हिस्से में कितने पैसे आए हैं, पॉलिसी उनको कितना अलोकेट कर रही है। जब भी होगा, जब ये फाइनलाइजेशन तक जाएगा, जब हमें पता ही नहीं है तो हम मांगेंगे कैसे? जब हमें पता करने की ढांचे ही नहीं है कि आप किसी को पूछ सकते हो कि आपके पीडीएस ने आपको कितना राशन दिया है, आप पीएससी को पूछ सकते हो कि आपके आपके लिए मेडिकल में कितनी गोलियां आई है, राइट? आपको कॉपर्टी फ्री बिठाना है क्या विद चार्जेस बिठाना है? ये चीजें जब आप पूछ पाओगे, तब जाके आप बजट जो है एक्सेस कर पाओगे, क्योंकि बजट तो उसी तरह से स्पेंड नहीं किया जा रहा है। तो मुझे ओवरऑल जब बजटरी चीजों को मैं देख रही हूँ, मुझे लगता है ये बात लीडरशिप की है। क्या हमारे रिप्रेजेंटेशन ने दिए गए रिकमेंडेशंस, जैसे मैं बोल रही हूँ कि एनटीडीएनटी मोर देन 78% होमलेस है, लैंडलेस है और वॉललेस है, वो टू साइड वॉल्स में रहते हैं। तो हमारे रिहैबिलिटेशन के बारे में क्या अकाउंटेबिलिटी है? अगर ये रिहैबिलिटेशन नहीं होंगे, हाउसिंग के बारे में यहाँ पे जो है बात की गई है, लेकिन मिडिल क्लास ये शब्दों को इतना फोकस्ड किया गया है, और जो मिडिल क्लास के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में नहीं बैठते हैं, जो ऑलमोस्ट क्लास और कास्ट के भी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में नहीं बैठते हैं, जो कहीं सो आउट ऑफ बॉर्डर रहते हैं, रहने के लिए मजबूर किए गए हैं, वो किस तरह से जो है वो अपने हिस्से के बारे में बात करेंगे और आते हुए चीजों के यूटिलाइजेशन के बारे में वो सोचेंगे, ऐसे मुझे काफी लग रहा है। जेंडर के अंदर जो है, जेंडर बजट के अंदर नरेगा, समग्र शिक्षा, स्वच्छ भारत मिशन, आवास योजना, इसका जो क्रंच किया गया है, तो यहाँ पे आम औरतों के बजट के बारे में पूछने की मुश्किल हो गई है। तो मुझे सवाल पड़ा है कि मैं एंटी डेंटी विमेन के बारे में क्या पूछूं, क्योंकि विमेन के अंदर भी जो है वो लेयर है कि सबसे पहले औरतों के पास आएगा, वो कौन सी औरतों के पास जाएगा। और यूएन विमेन का रिसर्च बताता है कि दलित और पिछड़े तबके में आने वाली जो औरतें हैं, वो 15 साल कम जीती है सवर्ण औरतों से। तो इसके 15 साल कम जीने के क्या कारण है? क्या उसको बजट उत्तरदायी नहीं है? क्या आंगनबाड़ी में कितना पोषण आहार होना चाहिए, एजुकेशन बजट कितना होना चाहिए, आश्रमशालाओं की कंडीशन क्या होनी चाहिए, रिहैबिलिटेशन का किस तरह से प्रोसेस होना चाहिए? छोटे छोटे मूवमेंट और छोटे छोटे ग्रुप उठकर हमेशा जो है वो एडवोकेसी कर रहे हैं कि हमारा रिहैबिलिटेशन आप करवाइए। तो ये बजट को देखते हुए मुझे लगता है कि डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब आम्बेडकर और टोटली जो महात्मा फुले का, पेरियार का, बसवन्ना का जो एक थॉट रहा है सामाजिक न्याय को लेकर, वो राजकीय इच्छा शक्तियों को समझने के लिए वो कम पड़ रहे हैं। बजटरी प्रोविजन, ग्लोबलाइजेशन, प्राइवेटाइजेशन, कॉर्पोरेट फ्रेंडली, इसको लेकर जो है वो ज्यादा ध्यान रख रहा है। लेकिन ट्राइबल, नोमैडिक ट्राइब और उनके भीतर की औरतें, उनके भीतर के बच्चे, उनके भीतर के पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटी, इसको लेकर खुले तौर पे हर लेयर में, हर सेक्शनलिटी में काफी अपेक्षा है कि जो अर्थव्यवस्था की नींव संभाले हुए लोग हैं वो बात करें। एग्जीक्यूशन क्या करते हैं हम तो वो देखेंगे, हम वॉच करेंगे, लेकिन कम से कम वो बात तो करे, उसको एलोबरेट करे, उसको डिस्क्राइब करे। इंडियन डेमोक्रेसी उसका जवाबदेही दे रही है, ये विश्वास तो दिलाए। दूसरा है कि जिस तरह से मेंटल हेल्थ के लिए बजट जो है वो बढ़ाया गया है 65 करोड़ से 100 करोड़, लेकिन आयुष्मान भारत योजना में मेंटल हेल्थ जो है वो इंक्लूड नहीं है। तो हमारे लोग तो वहीं पे जाएंगे, राइट? हम सबसे पहले गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल जाएंगे। तो बजट कहाँ पे लोकेट करना है, कौन से इंस्टीट्यूशन और कौन से एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के स्टेप में बजट इंक्लूड करना है, क्योंकि ऐसे ना हो कि बजट का पैसा मैंने कबर्ड के सबसे ऊपरी लॉकर में रखा और किसी बच्चे को बोला कि आप वहां तक पहुंच जाओ, और बोला रखा तो है, ऊपरी लॉकर में रखा है, आपको नहीं मिला, तो लोगों के हाथ जा रहा है क्या वहां तक? बजट को लोकेट कहाँ किया गया है, किसके थ्रू लोकेट किया गया है? तो कुछ जगह पे बजट के नंबर्स काफी बड़े लग रहे हैं, लेकिन उसका चिंतन और मनन करना पड़ेगा कि एग्जैक्टली किस मानसिकता के साथ वो कहाँ खर्च होने वाला है, लोकेट कहाँ पे होने वाला है, रिप्रेजेंटेशन है क्या, और वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट जहां पे भी लोकेट होने वाला है वहां पे कंसेंट का पॉलिटिक्स किस तरह से आप उसको जवाब दोगे। यस, थैंक यू।
Yeah, I think Dipaji, you have brought an extremely important question of representation and voice, and that's what happened during the pandemic years. Also, 740 crores were allocated for mental health. To be nodal agency was in NIMHAS, and NIMHAS is a very elite institution, not accessible to the most of the even state government. So you saw most of the proposals went from Kerala, because Kerala, you have a high level of literacy and the ministry was active. But other state governments and union territories have not even applied for the proposals. So once you don't use the money for this year, subsequent year, they would think that, oh, these services are not required. That's what happened with the crash, no? That unutilized money, if you have 70%, 80%, even in so many states, 100% unutilized, then what happens is that next time the budgetary allocation reduces, and also sometimes even the schemes are scrapped, because that is the fear. Even Nirbhaya scheme, at least we have a caveat that if the money is not utilized this year, it should be carried forward. You can't divert the money. But in most of the cases, when it is not utilized in the revised budget, money gets diverted. So this thing also, that is why when you saw budget literacy, it's extremely important, because the moment people see, even highly educated people see budget book, they switch off. I've seen the budget book ka itna dar hai, and that's what when women became first generation of women elected representatives in 1994, people used to poke fun at them. Do you understand budget? You will just can do flag hoisting. That's it. You can't handle the budget. So I think demystification of budget is very important. And you rightly said that budget for the tribal sub-plan, which is a largely unutilized. There are states which are 90% unutilization. There are states with 95% non-utilization, 60% non-utilization. And the Mantralaya would directly say, oh, but we did not receive proposal. But have you made proactive effort to propose it? This year, even Ministry of Panchayati Raj budget has gone down. Imagine, they were the Panchayati Raj institutions were at the forefront at the time of pandemic. It was the Panchayat, urban and rural local government institutions played a pivotal role. But still, their budget gets reduced. So I think these are the intricacies that we have, and that's why we need more and more capacity building program, and also the budget making exercises, actual exercise of this, and certain ministries with the accountability. Because see, you are asking for quarterly report. Every 3 months, every ministry and department has to send the report of what kind of gender budgeting or the social sector budgeting you did. Then how do they get away? The people who are actually making budget, how do they get away with non-utilization or non-implementation? And why money remains parked only in the ministry, it never gets channelized and reaching to the community. So I think your intervention here is very, very important. And I think you are the ones who are going to be the torchbearer of the budget literacy in the coming years, because now you have got into the intricacy and the technical details, and you have made such a studied presentation today. Now, linked to that, I would like to say that government is talking about Beti Bachao through vaccination. No, Beti Bachao, vaccine lagao. You must have read so many reports of the free vaccination campaign for girls. Now, the first experiment was made on the tribal women. Okay, and Sikkim was an example where 98% of the girls in Sikkim, they have been given Gavi, vaccine named Gavi, and this is for cervical cancer. The issue is still being debated. There is a lot of secrecy about the veracity of the vaccination, and government has said that they will provide free cervical cancer vaccine to all the girls in the 9 to 14 age group, and it will also be covered under Ayushman Bharat scheme. And also the private institution like Serum Institute of India, which is selling currently, this vaccine is being sold for 2,500 rupees, which they will sell to the government for 200 to 400 per dose. So government will buy it from the private sector and they will give this thing. And it is still, the issue is still being debated in the women's group, but I think there should be more transparency about this whole nationwide vaccination program for the young girls. Now, I would like to, I think would anyone of you would like to give the concluding remarks about the pathways? I can give you 30 seconds or 1 minute each. Yeah. Can we start with Mayaji? Hello.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. I think when I've been always been asked, like, with the budget, what is the priority area which you want to focus as a trans person? I think it's a question, same way, like, you are asking a hungry child and take to the cake shop and you want which cake you want. I want to say, who have never tasted a cake and you don't give a choice, you give lots of choice to them. So it is the same for us also. Every single section, maybe education, health, sanitization, accommodation, protection, social protection, everything is important for us. And I or any of my committee member can't prioritize which is the more important thing. So I think the only suggestion I would like to say, like, follow the NALSA judgment and see the directive what they have given. The Supreme Court is given the wonderful directive to the state and government. And let's do the thing which has not been done till yet, which has been pending from last 2014, almost 10 years. We have not done anything. So let's do what we've been pending and make more of, because Amrit Kal is going on. In 2047, we want to complete the Amrit Mahotsav. So we have still time to celebrate. And then by that time, we can say that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Thank you.
Okay. Now, there has been a response from in the chat box. I think there is a experience from Odisha. I think one participant wants to share. So are you there? Hello? Can you see this thing? Name, I think she has given her name also. Let me just find out. Amisa Dalal. Amisa Dalai, are you there? Hello? Amisa Dalai? She has written in the chat box that I am Amisa Dalai, research scholar, Center School of Women's Studies, Utkal University, Bhubaneswar. As a women's studies student, I want to share my perspective, and we are studying or researching in a particular area, which is women's issues and empowerment. So first of all, we get an opportunity to work in the field instead of just other subjects, and it will be real empowerment to us. So I think she's not there. So now I think we can, other panelists can speak. Shri Sailesh Mishra-ji, your pathway for future. Can you speak on?
I think earlier government is to have the planning commission, Niti Aayog. They is to concern stakeholders, different for like seniors, women, disabled people. This time it is not happening for last 5-6 years, like 3 budget. I think they should consult people who are the stakeholders who are going to benefit from this. And government of India should see the national policy. We have a national policy of older person, which is part of MADIT International Plan of Action. If that is implemented, that majorly social and health issues. If you concentrate on that, senior will bless you. They have given their life to the country, so they need social and health benefits. If you can give them, they will be very happy. Thank you.
Yeah. Social and health benefits. Yeah. Neha-ji? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to incorporate and take along all those who are underprivileged, I think the fundamental thing remains is they need to be empowered with education and health. This is the primary services in human development. And obviously the market is also providing this, but that is very, very expensive. And so obviously, if we depend on the market, they will remain out of, or they'll remain further deprived of these services. So it becomes the first and the foremost responsibility of the government to spend money to these particular services, and at least meet the global standards of the health and education expenditure marks, that at least 5% of the budget should go for that. Right now, we are not even spending 3%. And as I said earlier, the actual expenditure is even below the budgetary allocation. So at least, right, I think the government should take these issues very seriously into consideration and spend more money on this primary services.
Very well said. Yeah, most important. Thank you. Now, Manimekalai ji, are you there? Oh, she's not there. Paramita ji, hello. Are you there? Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Yeah. Quickly, I would just like to flag, because there are processes involved everywhere, everything is going to time within the annual budget calendar. One thing is, regular capacity building on GRB, and what, Deepa ji had said, budgetary literacy is extremely important, not only for the departments, demystifying what it mentions, and also about the departments. I had mentioned it, it's people talking. I mean, of course, even Sailesh ji said that social justice ministry will not talk to the other department, so it's not talking to each other. Breaking that ice is extremely important, making departments talk to each other in a convergent mode, and that can happen only through capacity building. That's one. And the other important thing I feel is, it's very critical, is of having institutionalization of the gender audit of critical programs. Once done, and if you have data, and at least some 10 state study put together of one particular scheme, with the budget analysis, and placing it in front of, be it the transgender or the old age issues that have been flagged here, I think will make some difference with that particular ministry to begin with. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, Deepa ji, last word up from you. Yes.
मुझे 2-3 चीजें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट लगती है कि बजट एक्सेसिबिलिटी को लेकर सरकार ने अपनी अकाउंटेबिलिटी जो है वो बढ़ानी चाहिए, कि बजट जो भी कम ज्यादा जो भी हुआ एजुकेशन हेल्थ में जो भी हुआ है, कम से कम वो कैसे पहुंचे। कारणे दाखवा नोटिस मराठी में कहा जाता है, जो बजट स्पेंड नहीं होता है उसको हम क्या आस्क करेंगे, उसको पूछेंगे नहीं कि वो बजट क्यों नहीं स्पेंड हुआ, उसके वैलिड रीजन जो है वो सच में ऑडिट फॉर्म में जो वो होंगे तो बहुत अच्छा होगा। अभी का जो प्री मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप, पोस्ट मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप, इसको लेकर बहुत गहन है ये। एजुकेशन के बजट में कहीं भी क्राइसिस करना बहुत प्रॉब्लमेटिक है, और बजट का लोकेशन अवेलेबल हो, उस लोकेशन पे बजट अलोकेट करना चाहिए, नहीं तो बजट जो है एंड में हमारे पास वही जवाब रहेगा कि बजट स्पेंड नहीं हुआ।
Thank you. I think all our participants, our panelists have been extremely focused. They have made studied presentation about budget and demystified so many notions about intricacies of budget. So which is very important. And the intersectional perspective was main USP of today's panel discussion. So I thank all the erudite panelists, and there are no questions from the participants. I think for them also it is they have found the presentations foolproof. But in my concluding remark, I would like to say that what emerges from this discussion is that gender and social sector concerns have been put on back burner in the current interim budget. There is urgent need for quality education, efficient public health system, increasing work participation of women that stands at just 37%, which is much lesser than some of the South Asian countries and most of the Asian countries. What we need is also supportive measures for poor farmers, forest dwellers, the question of unpaid care work, and how to strengthen care economy so that more women can find it to negotiate the labor market challenges. Mobility of women, very important. and also the transgender persons' special needs and how they are excluded, and the implementation of NALSA judgment is very important. Those who are at the bottom of the pyramid of workforce, SC, ST, informal sector people, person with disability, all of them, I think the least attention has been paid in the budget because the major focus has been on the corporate or the infrastructure and the industrial sector. Because they are perceived and they are seen by the finance ministry as a engine of growth, no drivers of growth. So grave problem of unemployment is not even mentioned, as several participants, several panelists talked about. The only capital expenditure on infrastructure, industry, and privatization, even of the vaccination, that is because we all are used to, in my time, vaccination was always a state responsibility, whether it was a smallpox vaccination or any other polio vaccination, state took the response. First time during the pandemic and in the post-pandemic period, we saw privatization of vaccination. So it was not only the COVID vaccination, but even now we are talking about the cervical cancer vaccination that also will be sourced by the government from the private sector, which is selling it currently in the market for 2,500 rupees per dose. Now, gender economist, if you see last 2-3 days of articles, extensive writings have been there, both as opinion and as a very systematic deconstructing of the interim budget, which shows that the gender economists have found the 300 units of free electricity to 1 crore homes, or increasing number of self-employed women to 3 crore under Lakpati Didi scheme, about which Dr. Manimekalai said that how they have become all these self-employed women. They have to depend on the microfinance, and all their life revolves only around the vicious circle of debt. To pay one loan, they are borrowing more, and they have to pay 10% rate of compound rate of interest, which is really 120% per year. So this is the whole trap that we need to deconstruct. And Mudra Yojana loan is only of 30 crore, not even more. And that is in 10 years time, no? So you can see that it is again a tokenism. And 3 crore houses under PM Awas Yojana, and 2 crore more houses to be built in the next 5 years, which is also a drop in the ocean. The social sector, when it comes to social sector, the announcement of interim budget of 55 lakhs new jobs through PM Matsya Yojana for the fisher folks, or that is also again, there is no clear-cut schemes and programs through which it would be channelized. So again, they will have to, the stakeholders will have to be very proactive to see to it that again, this scheme also doesn't remain on paper, because fisher folks are facing major crises in all the coastal regions. And there have been so many struggles also during the pandemic and in the post-pandemic period. The most scary thing which I find is about the announcement on population control. So instead of making developmental investment among the 50% of bottom poor, if the budget highlights about the population control as an important agenda, and we see that the actual reality is such that among the 28 states and 8 union territories, there is a below replacement level TFR, total fertility rate. That means couples are producing less than 2 children. TFR of Andhra Pradesh is 1.5, Delhi 1.5, Jammu and Kashmir 1.5, Punjab 1.5, Tamil Nadu 1.5, West Bengal 1.5, Himachal Pradesh 1.6, Kerala 1.6, Maharashtra 1.6, Telangana 1.6, Karnataka 1.7, Odisha 1.8, Uttarakhand 1.9, Gujarat is 2.1, Haryana 2.1. So all these 15 states have already reached the population stabilization. So the question of population bomb, I think, doesn't hold water. Only there are UP, Bihar has a 3.1 this thing. But I think most important thing is, as all the panelists say, that investment in education, investment in public health, so that the child mortality rate goes down. That is the solution to the problem, not just upward, like vertically imposed population policy, which is bureaucratically implemented by the state, which grossly violates bodily integrity and the dignity of women, because women are the ones who are target of population control. So I would like to conclude with the statement of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar's visionary declaration. Thank you, Deepaji, for reminding us about the legacy of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, Periyarji, Jyotiba Phule, who were also very articulate economists, no? And Baba Saheb got his second PhD from London School of Economics. And I quote that we must not content with mere political democracy. We must make our political democracy a social democracy as well. Political democracy cannot last unless there is the base of social democracy. Thank you, all of you participants, as well as the erudite panelists, for making this discussion and the very first panel discussion in the series of panel discussions by sectoral discussion by IMPRI. And now I request Samriddhi ji to take over.
Thank you so much, Professor Vibhuti. It was like, it really, good discussion, really liked it. And thank you so much, IMPRI, for having all of us here. And the sectoral, focus has really been an eye-opener for me as well, looking, understanding the transgender and other issues. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I think in coming 4 days, there will be 10 such panel discussions, sectoral. So today we have started with gender and social sector, and there will be about environment and livelihood and employment and urbanization. All these issues which are shown on the poster will also be debated in coming 3 days.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Please join us for all the sessions that are waiting in the future. And as for the vote of thanks, as we come to the end of today's discussions, I, Samriddhi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center, GISC. I would like to thank all of you for attending today's session and deliberation on the panel discussion on gender, social inclusion, and interim union budget 2024 to 2025. We are grateful for our chair of the session, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, and our esteemed panelists, Dr. Paramita Majumdar ji, Professor N. Manimekalai ji, Dr. Neha Shah ji, Dr. Sanghamitra Dhar ji, Maya Awasthy ji, Shri Sailesh Mishra ji, Ms. Deepa Parwar ji, for taking part in the discussions and enlightening us with your words. We thank all our participants who have raised questions and have actively paid attention to the discussions today. We are also grateful if you're watching us later on our YouTube channel or are listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. You may also find more about the thematic events and book discussions under IMPRI Web Policy Talk series. We hope that you continue to join us in our future deliberations and IMPRI Web Policy Talk series and Web Policy Learning series. Wishing you all a great evening ahead. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Deepal. Hi, Dr. Neha. Bye. Bye, Deepal.